Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the UFC card for this Saturday. Um, sorry, I have a lot of personal variants going on right now, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the line of construction video, but just almost as a distraction from what the other stuff I have going on, I'm going to go through this card from a DFS perspective. So it's a 12 fight card, which means that um, you could get there. In other words, you could win this lottery tournament solo without going too ballistic, but I would rather it be 13 fights. Um, but the one thing that I have seen is that my initial builds, just in case I don't do a line of construction video, is or they are organically leaving money on the table, and I like that because I don't like building lineups intentionally leaving money on the table. Because when that happens, let's say you like leave 600 on the table, for example, you then what that happen when you do that, you're not getting from an $8,600 fighter up to a $9,200 fighter, for example, which might be a great play. But if your natural builds are getting you lineups that leave, say, 600 on the table, that's a good thing. So that's one thing that I've noticed, at least for my first builds, is that. So if you do run sims and run lineup constructions or whatever, and you get a lot of money left on the table, I would just live with it. Okay. Um, that's the first thing. Second thing is this main event. I guess we'll get to it when we get to it. But I have I mean, I have a very easy thought on this main event, which will, I guess you'll have to wait for, I suppose. The other thing is that there's not a lot of great finishing props here. I mean, you don't see these like minus 300 inside the distance. You don't see these huge grapplers, that could pile up 130 in wins. It does rate, at least in my opinion, to be kind of a lower scoring slate, which sort of means also that, just you could just get the wins. You might be in decent shape here. Okay. That's kind of the baseline, what is it, 30,000 foot view of the slate. I guess let's just go through it. Santos versus Ozzy Diaz, 8,700 versus 7,500. Um, we have minus 182, so there's no real money line value. And the inside the distance line, it's really not that great. I mean, that's fine. I mean, a plus 130 inside for the favorite here. That's not terrible. Um, but it's not like it's a lock either. So we'll put him in as an okay play. Um, and we'll just see if there's anybody better. How about that? So plus 125, 8,700. That's right at baseline. I'd like to see 9K fighters have minus 110. So I guess this checks out. I guess this is kind of a decent play. I don't really have much to say about the Ozzy Diaz side here. His inside the distance line is, I guess, pretty poor, right? Diaz inside. I mean, that's not bad. Plus 300. Yeah, okay. So plus 300, 7,500. It's not, he's about as good of an underdog as Santos is a favorite. How about that? No, actually, you know what? I think the favorite here is a little bit better than the underdog. So we'll put Santos in for now. Diaz will just kind of hold off on. Castaneda versus Gutierrez. Now, Chris Gutierrez is usually where fantasy points go to die here. Even in his two wins here, he's got 75, 56. He did get a first round KO over Frankie Edgar, who's 1,000 years old. He's a good striker, and good strikers usually, without a big finishing prop, just take all the air out of the ball as far as fantasy production goes. So I'm inclined to believe that this fight is probably a fade. But the one thing that you're going to hear about, which makes some sense, is that Gutierrez's main flaw is his takedown defense, and Castaneda is pretty good with his wrestling. So I think Castaneda is going to be the side here if you have to pick someone. And as I mentioned, the scoring in this week's slate doesn't rate to be that high. So if Castaneda does get it going and gets one of these like 90s or 85s, that's going to be just plenty, I think, at his price for a uh on a card like this. So I think Castaneda is definitely the side. I don't think I'd want to play any Gutierrez at all. All right, Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall. Um, so Santos is pretty expensive, so he's going to have a really good inside the distance line, and it's really not great. It's plus, what is this, plus 170 or something like that? I mean, given his price at 9,200, this is just a poor play. It's not like he's going to have takedown upside here. I mean, if anything, it would be Marshall with the takedown upside. Um now the only thing is that, I mean, I actually saw this fight live and he looked pretty miserable. He couldn't get Bazooka down. He was trying so hard. So I don't really see much of a path for Marshall. So I think this fight's probably somewhat of a fade, honestly. All right, so we have Carlos Leal versus Alex Morono, and this is something that we talk about a lot. Is this idea of the guy with the good loss getting just really priced up in his next fight? So Carlos Leal lost a pretty tough split decision to Fakhretdinov as a big underdog. He had a lot of 107 significant strikes. He was really good, but I don't know. To price him up to minus 800 or whatever he is seems like pretty ambitious. Now, again, he's fighting a good opponent for this because Alex Morono is just really, all he usually fights are these 40-year-olds. It's not as if he does all that great against them. So they're probably rewarding Carlos Leal with an easy win here. So I probably don't want to fade this. Um, We'll take a look at the inside the distance line. I'm pretty sure it's going to be minus 150 or something like that. Let's take a look. Leal inside plus, what is this? Minus one, yeah, minus like 150. So pretty good price. Excuse me, pretty good prop. Pretty crappy price though. So unless we can find some really good underdogs, it's going to be difficult to get there. That's the only problem. Morono, just, I don't know. I just it just doesn't win often enough to be a good play here. All right, Armin Petrosian versus Bruno Ferreira. So this is a fight where you could kind of, if you wanted to, not if you wanted to, but if you get to it organically, I guess. If you played like Bruno Ferreira and you left money on the table, it's probably a good idea because I do think he's going to be pretty popular. I mean, if you look at his regular results, I mean, he's got first round KO, first round KO, first round KO. So his fights always deliver, right? So in the quest for a good underdog, he's a very obvious one, to play. So I think he's going to be pretty popular. So sometimes what you could do with situations like that is to play him, but leave some money on the table, even up to 1,000. Like if could build lineups with Petrosian and then just replace it with Ferreira, you can get a pretty decently low-owned lineup. The other thing I will say is that on this type of card, I wouldn't dismiss Petrosian as fast as people might. You know, Usually they have these pure strikers with kind of a crappy inside the distance line, and they're usually fades. Like here, he's minus what? Plus, what is this, 240 or something inside the distance? And for 8,600, that's really not good at all. But this card doesn't really require all that much as far as upside goes. So I think the Petrosian is actually a weirdly sneaky play here because I think Pereira is going to be very popular, and Petrosian can put up a lot of volume, and Ferreira is not very defensively sound. I think I haven't done like a betting breakdown in a while, but I would say that probably a sneaky bet you can make is some variation of Petrosian by KO or Petrosian inside the distance because people are going to expect Ferreira to be the one with all the finishing upside. But remember, Ferreira, if he comes after it and just runs out of gas, Petrosian's got really good volume and good cardio. He could get him out of there. And I'll tell you something else. Like if you really wanted to get funky, you play something like Petrosian by KO round 3. I don't know what that price is, but that's got to be really juicy. As a matter of fact, well, actually, I can't because I'm on Zoom. It won't let me. But you want to see if we can find out what that prop is real quick? Actually, you know what we could do? See what it did already. Let's go to Bet Online. Let's I think I am going to do that actually. Let's go to Bet Online here, which they don't care about Zoom and VPNs and whatever else you have going on. So let's log into here. How much money do I have in here? Probably still have a couple of thousand. I had to send some out to somebody. Yeah, so let's see. MMA, what is this? UFC 313? Is that this one? Yeah. So let's take a look. Petrosian. Okay, let's see. So Petrosian in round 3 is like plus 1,000. I think that's pretty sneaky. And you can always, oh my God, Petrosian by KO is only plus 220. Boy, this would be really fun if I could actually get away with this. Yeah, let's do it. We'll go Petrosian round 3 for 180. Just something to do. But I do really like Petrosian inside the distance here. The path is for, Pereira to come out like a ball of fire and just kind of run out of gas. And that can certainly happen very easily. Okay. But I mean, as I mentioned, Pereira is a good play, but I think Ferreira is going to be somewhat popular, so I would probably try to leave money on the table in those lineups. All right. Ray Tsuruya versus Joshua Van. So Joshua Van is really, really good. He has 2 issues. Number 1, he's kind of a slow starter. And number 2, he has been taken down sometimes. And Tsuruya, for what I've heard, is he did have 3 takedowns against Carlos Hernandez here en route to a win. Not exactly a high scoring win though. I could see why Van is the favorite. I mean, but what bothers me usually is going to be this slow start because if you want to put up a big score, you can't really get away with having a slow start. Is inside the distance line is just again kind of poor, like plus 230, 240. He does put up a lot of volume though, and again, this card is not a particularly high scoring, doesn't rate to be so. I guess Van's decent. Tsuruya, I mean, what's good about him is if in fact he wins, it's going to be because he was able to get the takedowns, which is going to score well. So I definitely think that he rates to be a kind of a good underdog here. So, but Tsuruya, Ferreira, I mean, I like both those guys as decent underdogs so far. And Van 8,800. How do I compare him to some of these others so far? Compared to say Santos, I think Santos is probably better than Van just because of the better inside the distance line, I guess. Then again, Van does have that volume. I think they're very similar, actually, Santos and Tsuruya. Excuse me, Santos and Van, I guess, as favorites. Comparing Van to Petrosian, putting the leverage aside, I guess Van is going to be a little bit of better play, maybe. I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting on board with this Petrosian thing. Playing these pure strikers is usually just not a good idea. But I just really feel that this leverage you're going to get over Ferreira is going to mean something. So I don't know. All right, Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev. I mean, here's the problem. So here's the thing with Curtis Blades. He's known as like one of the best wrestlers in the division, and yet he hasn't gotten a takedown since the Eisenhower administration. Like think about this for a second. Like you think about Curtis Blades, right? Okay, zillions of takedowns, and I can't find any. So yeah, he got 14 takedowns against Volkov in 2020 and scored 173 fantasy points. And he enjoyed doing that so much or so little that he never did it. You know, he got zero takedowns against Derek Lewis and Roots being knocked out. He did get three takedowns on Rosenstreak, so that was okay. But then like he did win by KO over Dawkins, but that was round two. No takedowns, no takedowns. Well, Aspinall, there was an injury there. Then he got nothing going against Pavlovich. Almeida he won, but he got ragdolled there. So what we really have, honestly, I think we have a fighter who's going to be striking. I really do. I don't think Blades is going to. I mean, he just hasn't done it in so long. I don't know if he's going to go for these takedowns. I really don't. And if he doesn't, and you have a striking battle here, then now you have a Curtis Blades who's gotten knocked out like 100 times in a row. Seems that way. And I don't know much about this Kuniev character, but I think he's live. I don't know what to say. I mean, he's only plus 275. You know what I mean? Like he's got to have something. Let's take a look at what he's done here. I mean, first round KO. See, I don't like this decision, this third round decision in the PFL. I don't like that. I wanted that like all these KOs. Third round KO, third round KO. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have it in him. This would be such a big win if he can get it, but I don't know. I hate to be like this, but no one that has to go to a decision like this is beating Curtis Blades. I don't know. It really is. I still think that Curtis Blades can win without going for takedowns, and I think that that's what he's going to probably end up doing. So maybe he's not going to be that great. Oh, one second. Let me pause this. Uh, okay, so Blades, again, I don't think it's going to be that great of a play. I think it's going to be popular too. I just maybe I'm being too jaded here, but I just see this variation where he just stands there and wins a striking battle, and that might not do it at 9,100, but maybe it will. Maybe he gets a first round KO after all this. I don't know. I'm a little confused about this one. Mauricio Rufy versus Bobby King Green, 9,400. So at 9,400, you're going to need a really strong inside the distance line. I think you're getting it here. Um, I think he's minus 150. I mean, that's good enough, right? I mean, 130. Ugh, I don't know. The thing is, again, as I mentioned, if this were a 14 fight card with a lot of upside, I would say maybe this is a little too expensive. But again, if you could give me 110 out of this dude on this card, it's probably good enough. Let's look at this first round prop. Plus 240. This is tough, man. This is tough pricing because it's not really that great a play, but having trouble finding much better. Miranda, well, who's better, Miranda or Ruffy? Or Blades now that I'm thinking about it. This is hard. I'd have to say that they're the same. And I have to say that Rufy, Miranda, even Blades, I guess. I didn't even look at Blades inside the distance line. We'll take a look at it. Blades inside the distance was what? Um, I mean, minus 110. I mean, maybe he's like a lock, you know? Even without the takedowns, minus 110 to 9,100 is just as good as these others. So yeah, I guess. Never mind. So I guess one of these three, Blades, Rufy, or Miranda, you should probably have. Just because there's nothing else. All right, so there's a couple of so we're left with three remaining kind of mid-range fights. So this is probably what you're supposed to do here. Because I haven't really talked about any really great looking underdogs here. Saruya was okay. Ferrero is good but chalky. Really, there was nobody else. So in the absence of really good underdogs, you're probably gonna have to access these mid-rangers. And this is, it's a good fight. Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. You have Turner inside is plus 160. Bahamondes inside plus 220. The pricing is right. So I think that you should probably play both sides of this. Jalen Turner, it does have the better inside the distance line, so I guess ostensibly he does look like the better play. But I mean, you're really splitting hairs here at this pricing. So Bahamondes, yes. Turner, yes. You have Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, a rematch, and I think this is probably fairly lined. And you look at the inside the distance line here, you have neither one rates to finish. Fiziev plus 200 is the better inside the distance line. And Gaethje, he's really not going to be going for takedowns here. He went for one in like the last round of his first fight with Fiziev, and you know what? He actually kind of laughed about it in the interviews. Okay, you got your takedown, you happy? So I don't think he's going to be going for any. So you have Gaethje with this poor inside the distance line. I just don't think that I would probably play him. Fiziev, it's better. His inside the distance line is 80. He's 8,400. And his inside the distance line, what did we say, is plus 200? Is that better than, hold on. Let's go back to that first fight again. The second fight. Actually, first fight. Ribeiro, or whatever we're calling him now. His inside the distance line was plus like 130. And he was 8,700 as opposed to Fiziev's 8,400. Who was the other 8,400 guy we looked at, though? There was somebody, Petrosian. I'll say this. I think Fiziev's going to be probably more popular than Petrosian. Van is more expensive. So, yeah, I guess Fiziev at 8,400 is decent. And again, you don't need to get 100 out of him on this card to get there. So I would fade Gaethje. I mean, if he were 7,400, I would try it, but not here. And I do like Fiziev. All right, so for Pereira against Ankalaev, I mean, this to me is a no-brainer. So here's the analysis. Okay, so primarily these guys are both strikers. Pereira is 100% a full striker. Ankalaev does have wrestling in his back pocket, but he's frustratingly doesn't use it when people think that he should. And I think because of that, people are underestimating the possibility that he doesn't. Like so many times, especially in DFS, you play him, like you play him against, say, Rakic, and you're like, well, this should be easy. Just take him down a bunch of times, score 110 fantasy points at 9,400. But instead, he stood up and got a pretty, workmanlike striking decision and scored zero. He didn't go for any takedowns against Johnny Walker, but it didn't matter. Blachowicz, he did get 2 takedowns and 11 minutes of control time. That's pretty good. Anthony Smith stayed striking. Santos Ozdemir 1 takedown. So the thing is from a game planning perspective, I mean, he certainly should go for takedowns against Pereira. And if he did, like if you told me straight up that his game plan was going for takedowns, I would literally play 100% of him, because in his wins, he's just going to score a ton. He's not going to win if I knew he was going for takedowns without scoring over maybe like 110, 20 points. So the question is what are the chances that that's his game plan? Is it 100%? No, but his upside is certainly higher than Pereira's, because we know what Pereira's going to do. Okay, He's an incredible world-class striker, and he's gonna bang it out. We don't know exactly what Ankalaev's gonna do. So we'll start with the Pereira side, and Pereira, you look at his inside the distance line, and it's fine. It's what is it plus? Let's see, take a look at it. Inside the distance is like plus. Ooh, it's actually not bad. So it's plus one. Maybe it's like plus 120. I mean, and that's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good. I mean, actually, it's incredibly good for 8,300. Only issue is we don't know exactly when that knockout is coming. Like, is he's live for third round knockouts and fourth round knockouts, which don't score all that well. But the problem is that we've already been through this card, and there's just not a lot as far as like huge upside here. So you have both these fighters that compared to the rest of the slate, they just kind of stand out. Okay. So for me, you put a gun to my head, I would say that you just have to lock this fight in. Okay. You just normally I would say, well, what if Pereira gets like a fourth round KO? He scores 90. Is that any good? You know what? On this card, it just might be. Okay. Ankalaev is the preferred play because if he wins, he's got more like 130 point upside. Like if in fact he does go for these takedowns and sees, ooh, how cool is this? This is easy. He'll just keep going to it and it'll get 130. That's what happened. And that will happen a certain percentage of the time, more than zero, less than 100. So you factor that in to his projection. And that's why you're going to probably get a really good projection on him and why he's going to show up in a ton of your lineup. So I think that this main event, this is not the way I usually play, but I really don't want to avoid this like at all. I mean, I want to probably play like 70% Ankalaev just because of that ceiling and maybe 30% Pereira and just kind of roll with it. All these other fights are whatever. Like the Fiziev Gaethje fight, who cares? I mean, really, like I'm not worried about not having this if I don't end up getting it. Turner, I think I do want to make sure I get this one. So at the end of the day, look at this. I'm getting these two mid-range fights, right? And then, oh, I didn't even talk about Lucindo Lemos. Crap. You know what? I apologize. Ruined my whole flow doing it though. So let me say this about this fight. It's a women's fight with a poor inside the distance line. However, Lucindo is the one with the takedown upside. So 3 takedowns, 2 takedowns, 2 takedowns, 4 takedowns against Lemos, who has been known to get taken down quite a bit. So I definitely think that she is the side. And, not to give her short shrift because, we didn't spend much time on this, but I think she's just as good of a play, if not better, than some of these others in this range that we talked about. Like, why is she worse than Fiziev, honestly? Why is she worse than what's his name? Petrosian, honestly. Why is she worse than even Santos? I mean, if she wins, she can get 85, 90 with her takedowns, and she's going to be less popular than all those cats. So, yeah, I actually do like Lucindo here. So the point is that you play this main event, either of these guys, really. I mean, you start with this, you play one of these, and then you could stay in this mid range and really just not have to do stuff like play punts like Morono, Marshall, or these guys. And you know what? You want to screw around. You could play like Petrosian against what's going to be a chalky Ferreira. And as you can see, you could build these lineups really, really easily. And you could also end up leaving money on the table, like if you do this. So let's just say instead of this, you played Ferreira, and then you played, I don't know, well, who these other guys that we talked about. Even if you played one of these big favorites, like let's say you played Blades, and then, well, actually, this is not leaving much money on the table, but I was going to say then you could play something like Joshua Van or play Santos, leave a few dollars on the table. Anyway, I think the main event's tough to fade. I do like the Turner fight. And then some of these other mid-rangers, Lucindo, Petrosian is a sneaky little, I still think Petrosian's sneaky. And yeah, I mean, those three favorites are probably decent. Who was it? Rufy, Blades, and Leal. So you probably should end up playing one of them. That's pretty much all that I have. Castaneda, sure. Like so. So again, let's get rid of her for a second. Take that upside, take that upside, take that upside. Turner, good inside the distance line. You know, stuff like this is probably what it's going to end up happening. And if that's the case, you might end up leaving money on the table, which I think is healthy on this card. All right, if I do end up doing a lineup construction video, you'll see that tomorrow or first thing Saturday morning. Otherwise, good luck, everybody.